Welcome back to Noseball. Today we are going to see if NBA players lived up to their draft comparison. I've got every draft from 2015 to 2024. Obviously, as we get to 2024 and 2023, like even honestly, 2015, the first year that we'll be starting with, you can't really say, but obviously it's up to this point so far. Do I think they were good comps? We're not going through every player in every draft or anything like that, but like obviously some that stick out. And these are also mock drafts. So shout out to NBA Draft Room because this is kind of where I could find a mock draft and a comparisons all in the same spot, easily to find. So I've got every year from 2015 all the way to 2024. And let's check it out. But before we get into that, make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you like and comment as well what you think and any video suggestions. And thank you for watching. All right, 2015. So the number one pick they had was Carl Anthony Towns, and they compared him to LaMarcus Aldridge and Pau Gasol. So a very good offensive center, of course. Wow, it's hard to do these, right? Like, because I'm not gonna pull up any like stats. I'm not gonna compare, but like, two skilled offensive centers, not obviously like your traditional defensive center. As I mean, as of now, who knows back then? I wasn't even watching basketball back then, but um I could understand those comparisons because Cat is not necessarily the first of his like of a skilled center or an offensive center mainly, but he's probably the best 3-point shooting center um that we have had. And he's not your typical defensive guy, so it kind of makes sense. D'Lo, they compared him to Stephen Curry. Safe to say he did not live up to that comparison. Granted, they were making this in 2015. This was the year before. Was this the first championship? Because right, so this is when Curry won the first and then won the first championship. Okay, that's a pretty bold prediction. Porzingis to Dirk, yeah. This makes sense because he was like a 7'3", offensively skilled four. Obviously transitioned to a five. Obviously not the player Dirk was, but it's a pretty good comparison. See anymore. So like Devin Booker, they had going 9. They had him compared to Wesley Matthews. Safe to say Devin Booker beat the Wesley Matthews comparison. I believe the Phoenix Suns all-time leading scorer, and is he even 30 yet? I think he's 29. Miles Turner, they had Chris Bosh. Wow. The fact that again, I don't know how these guys were in college, so like, and I'm not really going to know until like a few years down the line from where we're at, but obviously, guy Chris Bosh is better, but that's interesting. Okay, obvious. So, what else do we have? We've got like Tyus Jones to Tony Parker. That's a very um high comparison, but you read this simple and it's like okay. Um, what else? Look at this. First of all, small forward. Is this hold on? Is this the same Kevon Looney? Hold on. Let me check. Kevon Looney was drafted in the 2015. They compared Kevon Looney to Paul George. Again, I know Kevon Looney was like that when he was younger. I've seen the highlights and stuff. But wow. Paul George. Now that is interesting. You guys might have just seen your thumbnail for the video, but that's crazy. All right. So that is our first draft. Kevon Looney. I don't know if anything's going to beat Kevon Looney. I just don't know. I don't think anything's going to beat Kevon Looney, but we'll see. We've got a bunch of years to go. All right, so now we've got 2016, which is the Ben Simmons year. Magic and Draymond. Yeah, I mean that's obviously it didn't live up to these two players whatsoever, but those are pretty good comparisons. Brandon Ingram, Paul George, or KD. Can't say Brandon Ingram had lived up to either of those. I never really Brandon Ingram is a good player for sure. But I've never I don't know. Like, when I was younger, and this might be sound like a bias thing, and we'll get there, his draft is next, but always comparing people compare Brandon Ingram to, like, KD and stuff, or, like, saying that how Brandon Ingram will be so much better, like, than what Tatum would be. I would never saw that. Sure, I am a Celtic fan, but, like, I never saw how Brandon Ingram would be better than, Tatum. So, Chris Dunn was number 3 at the time, a longer Eric Bledsoe. Interesting. Um, you got like Jamal Murray, Darren Williams, CJ. I assume CJ McCollum. I would assume maybe. Um, I mean, I don't know. I didn't watch a lot of Darren Williams, but Jamal Murray, champion, one of the better players to never be an All Star. Powell for Dragon Bender. Yikes. Jalen Brown, Harrison Barnes. Okay. Um, Jalen Brown definitely beat Harrison Barnes, Finals MVP, All NBA, All Star. Buddy Hield, KCP, and Bradley Beal. See that's interesting because like I mean again I don't know what Brad or Buddy Hield was like for at Oklahoma, but it's just interesting seeing how some people look at this. Calabissiere, softer Miles Turner. Interesting. Miles Turner was just in the last one, so I don't know how they can compare a rookie to a guy who was going to be a rookie from a guy who just finished their rookie season. I don't really understand that, but Sabonis, Tyler Hansbrough, okay, Demonis Sabonis, okay, DeJounte Murray to Larry Hughes. Um Denzel Valentine, higher IQ Evan Turner. Okay. I like that it's funny when you see the higher IQ. There's another one that we'll get to, which I saw a glimpse of, which is why I wanted to do this. But I didn't look at these beforehand. Zubac, Tiago Splitter. I mean, he just was he second in DPOY? Or maybe no, maybe not second. He definitely made all defensive. He was maybe second for most improved player. Siakam to Serge Ibaka. Very different. I know Pascal is not the defender that Serge was by any means, but Pascal made it to 2 finals, one-time champion. Um, anything else really crazy? I don't even know who this is, but they compared him to Antoine Walker. Check Diallo. I remember him. All right, that was 2016. All these ads are making this a little laggy, so I apologize if they experience some lagginess on your end. Markel Fultz to Westbrook. Now I know Markel Fultz was very, very sought after his year at Washington, but Westbrook, obviously, he did not live up to that. Lonzo to Jason Kidd. I remember when they called this man the next Magic Johnson. They called him the next. Uh, every like the triple double leader. Magic Johnson, when he was running things over in LA, said, "We're retiring Lonzo Ball's jersey in the rafters. That's how much we believe in him." Obviously, did not live up to Jason Kidd. I wish Lonzo really did though, because he's my favorite of the Ball brothers. I think he is the best. I can't. Okay, I can't say bet. Like he's obviously not the best because Lamelo's been an all star, just average like 25, but Lonzo is the best all-around player for sure, like, best complete basketball player. If I'm picking a player I want on my team, obviously, it depends. If I've got my stars or whatever, I'm picking Lonzo. Like, that is, um so I'm really glad, but I hope Lonzo can get back into really playing a lot of games every year again. Jason Tatum to Paul Pierce. Now, this is very interesting because to some people, he might have beat this. Some people he might have not beat this already. I think he has beaten the Paul Pierce comparisons. Of course, they compare him to a Celtic player, by the way, but I, even though Paul Pierce has the Finals MVP and Tatum doesn't, I think Tatum's a better player already. I really do. I really think he is. So I'm gonna say he beat that. Number 4, man, Josh Jackson. I remember people. I was really believing in him. T Mac and Clyde Drexler obviously did not live up to that. I don't even know when the last year he played was. De'Aaron to Rondo and Wall. Wall makes sense. Rondo, I don't think he's a better all-time player than Rondo by any means. Probably better than Wall. Oh, actually, I can't say that. Wow, they really just compared him to Kentucky guards. What is this? Well, you just gonna compare him to two Kentucky guys? All right. Malik Monk to Bradley Beal and Levine. I would think of Malik Monk as like a Walmart Zach Levine almost. I don't mind that. Obviously not better than those two players, but um wow, they've okay. Well, Laurie Martin and Ryan Anderson, that wouldn't have been too bad if he didn't break out, but he's obviously better than Ryan Anderson. Donovan Mitchell to Marcus Smart. Was he really like what do they say? A ball hawk with NBA athleticism, great length for size, plays an un unri holy jeez, unrefined game, but has upside. He'd bring fresh energy to Hornets backcourt. And this was before like Marcus Smart was still like the worst flopper in the league at this point. Like this was before Smart was really respected. Obviously he's a better player than Marcus Smart. John Collins almost Marquise Chris. Zach Collins better Channing Frye. Luke Kennard, Wesley Matthews, man, Kedon's Heat, Allen over Joakim Noah. Ooh, I did not watch Joakim Noah. That is one of like the player like okay, there's plenty of players, but one of those 2010s players that I just am not familiar with. I know he was a good defender. I know he had a year where he was like sixth in MVP voting, I think. Like or maybe fifth, maybe top five, something like that. He was a big part to the Bulls, but like play wise, I couldn't really, you know, say too much. Bam Adebayo to Antonio McDyess. Um, wow, Harry Giles to Rasheed Wallace and Bobby Portis. Poor man's cat. I don't know who Justin Patton is. Anything too crazy? Nothing really too crazy. They didn't even have a comparison for Kuzma. Remember when people were trying to compare Kyle Kuzma to Jason Tatum? That's another one of those like Tatum versus Ingram things. But Tatum versus Kuzma was always worse. I don't care if Kuzma averaged 2 points per game better in his rookie year. He was playing for the Lakers, who weren't great at the time, but that is 27. All right, 2018, DeAndre Ayton to Boogie. I could see that. He didn't. He's not a better player than Boogie all time, but I could sort of understand it. Bagley to Kevin Garnett, and I assume Michael Beasley. Definitely not. Luca to Rubio and Mike Miller. Obviously, he is miles better than that. Mo Bamba, a more mobile Rudy Gobert. I really wish he was. Mo Bamba, I really wish. I don't know if he's actually even on a roster. I feel like he played for was it Philly last year? I know he had a stop in LA, but I think that was 2 years ago. Was he for Philly? I don't really remember where he played. Jackson is Alonzo Mourning and Miles Turner. Miles Turner's not bad. If you look at them today, two big men who can stretch the floor, pretty good shot blockers, not good rebounders for their or for their size. Makes sense. I would say Jaren's better than Miles Turner though. Shea to Tyreek Evans. Obviously, Shea blows that out the water. Wendell Carter to Greg Monroe and Al Horford. Now, if there was a player that played like Greg Monroe and Al Horford, that would be Very fun. Trey Young to Tyus Jones and Steve Nash. Wow. Wow. Tyus Jones. Well, I mean, obviously better than Tyus Jones. Not better than the two-time MVP, but like, wow. Kevin Knox, Paul George. Obviously, nowhere near that. Mikal Bridges is better than Otto Porter. MP Chase stronger. Brandon Ingram. Um, Lonnie Walker to Brandon Roy did not beat that. Colin Sexton better. Beverly and Chauncey Billups. I mean, he had some energy. He has some energy, but better than Chauncey Billups. Eh. Um, let's see. Kevin Herter to Clay like, and he's Clay light. And then Stauskas, Nick Stauskas. Anthony Simons to D'Angelo Russell. See, I'm not a fan of comparing like players to guys who got drafted 2 years ago because you don't know what those players are about to be. Um, I don't know who that is, but Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward was already a one-time All-Star for this. Jalen Brunson, Chinzo there. Obviously, I would say they're both those guys are better. Um, Gary Trent Jr. to Wesley Matthews. All right, that was 2018. Let's go to 2019. Before we get to 2019, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Remember to comment below, but make sure you guys subscribe if you like my channel. All right, 2019. Again, apologize if there's lagginess. This is Zion Williamson is Air Barkley. Not the defender or rebounder Barkley was. He's not better than Barkley all time, of course, but it's just funny. I remember those comparisons. He probably still gets them if we're being honest. Ja to a taller Iverson and Turbo D'Angelo. I love me some Ja Morant, but he is not better than Allen Iverson. Better than D'Angelo Russell, but not Iverson. RJ Barrett to Grant Hill and Angry Wiggins. Interesting. He's not better than Grant Hill, and I would argue he's not better than Andrew Wiggins all time. Currently, yes, but all time, probably not. DeAndre Hunter to Mikal Bridges. Didn't beat him there yet. We got Darius Garland to bigger Jeff Teague. Jamal Murray is for comparison for Kobe White. If Jackson Hayes was Hassan Whiteside, oh man, that would be amazing. I love me some Hassan Whiteside when he was cooking in the league. They called Cam Reddish a more athletic Joe Johnson. Sekou Demboya a bigger OG and Giannis light. Okay. More athletic. Oh yeah, we just looked at that. Brandon Clark, Kenyon Martin. Wow, Goga to Vucevic, Nikhil to Shea. You did not just compare Nikhil Alexander to Shea because they're cousins. No, you didn't. You did not just do that. Tyler Hero to Rex Chapman. Nazir Little is a wealthy man's Jeremy Grant. First of all, unless that's a different Jeremy Grant, I don't believe that's how you spell his name. I had some real faith in Nazir Little, man. It's even a few, last year or the year before when he was on the Suns, but Cabangeli, I don't know how you say his name, to Ibaka, no, KPJ to Lonnie Walker, Paul Washington Jr. Paul Washington Jr. I don't to David West, no. Rui to Wilson Chandler and Paul Millsap. They Cam Johnson, wet Justin Jackson. What are these? Comparisons? Bol to Porzingis and Rick Smith. Wow. And then Bol fell to what, like pick 45 or something like that. Grant Williams, Draymond, and PJ Tucker. Wow. Fits more of the PJ Tucker vibes than Draymond, but I could see it. But let's go to 2020. All right, we got 2020 here. Anthony Edwards to a bigger Oladipo. That's not a horrible comparison. I don't know what they mean by bigger, maybe like stockier, because I think they're about the same height. I think Oladipo is probably taller, but I would assume they mean stockier. LaMelo is a 6'7" Jason Williams. Oh my gosh, my worst draft miss ever was believing in James Wise. I thought James Wiseman could have been like a DeMarcus Cousins. Like I thought he legit could have been a top 3 center in the league. I That is probably the worst draft miss I will ever have. And he got picked number 2, but man, that is like this. If you want to talk about someone I believed in, I still have a little bit of faith in him, even though I don't think he's technically rostered. He tore his ACL with the Pacers last year, I think, and I think they released him at some point because they had to get in players. Patrick Williams to Ball Millsap, Tyrese Halliburton to Rich Man's DeJounte. Interesting. Danny Granger. That's an interesting comparison, seeing what Denny did turn out to be right now. Kongwu to Bam and Tristan Thompson. Killian Hayes to taller Jay Williams. Sadiq Bey to Chris Middleton, excuse me. RJ Hampton, Jamal Murray. I think we drafted RJ Hampton. Or no, we didn't draft. Who did we draft at this position? The Celtics. Oh, Neesmith. Yep, that's right. Part of the Malcolm Brogdon trade. Tyrese Maxey to Lou Will. That's a not horrible, I guess. Tyrell Terry, a poor man's Steph. Well, he must be real poor because I couldn't tell you a thing about the man. Zeke Naji. Malachi Flynn, Pokashevsky. All right, that is the 2020 draft. These last few are probably going to fly through because a lot of these guys, again, are still technically young players. Nothing has beat the Kevon Looney to Paul George, like for wildest thing, by the way. Cade to Luca. Okay. Jalen Green to Zach LaVine, I would say that fits. Evan Mobley, Chris Bosh. That's not bad either. Chauncey Billups or not bad. I mean, this is high praise. Draymond and Scotty. That's really high praise. But like these aren't the worst like comparisons. Those first like 6 weren't horrible. Kaminga, Alperen Sengun. Wow. That's how I would probably exactly say if you had to say pick 2 players that Sengun's like. I would say he's probably like a mix of Sabonis and Vucevic. A faster slow. Are they talking about Kyle Anderson? Now that's crazy. That man was a point guard. They compared him to a 4. Okay, I know he's 6'8" and he's played a bunch of positions, but wow. Moody to Allen Houston, Davion Mitchell to Kemba. Some high praise there. Corey Kispert. Okay. Keon Johnson to Jaylen Brown. Jalen Johnson to Tobias Harris. Man, Jalen Johnson, you stay healthy, brother. That Hawks team could be dangerous. Bones Highland to Quickly. That's a pretty good. 2021, they did their thing. Cam Thomas to Lou Will. Scorer, I guess, but they did their thing. 2021 was definitely their best comparison, I would say. By far, they nailed a lot of those. Not nailed, but like they gave pretty good comparisons for a lot of those. Granted, they weren't that long ago, but those are pretty good. 2022, Palo to Chris Webber and Blake. Interesting. Chet to Dirk. Jabari to Jaren. That's pretty good. Jaden Ivey to D Wade and Ja. I remember they really hyped up Jaden Ivey. And he still can be some, but D Wade and Ja is crazy. You know how that's a lot of athleticism between those two guys. And Jaden Ivey's athletic too, but I'm just saying, like D Wade and Ja, some premium slashers. Keegan Murray to Obi and Siakam. Sharp to Vince Carter and Brandon Roy. Wow. Dyson DeLonzo, I could sort of see that. Not the greatest shooter coming in, defensive guy, size. I could understand that. I hope Jalen Duren turns into Dwight Howard. So handed Jared Vanderbilt, Mark Williams, and Deion. I hope Mark Williams can turn into DeAndre Jordan. I'm a big Mark Williams believer. Jimmy Butler for AJ. I think this is AJ Griffin. Not even in the league anymore because he went to pursue like religion or something like that. I hope that's going good for him. But that was kind of a shocker when that happened. A longer Spencer Dinwiddie for J Dub. Wow. Tariq Eason to OG. Okay. I don't even know who Felipe Lopez is. Jane Hardy to Anthony Simons. Okay. All right. That was 2022. All right, we got 2023. Obviously, Wemby to a 7'4" Durant and a bigger Porzingis. Brandon Miller to Rudy Gay. I like that's I like that. Brandon Miller can stay healthy. Prime Westbrook and D Rose. I remember that was Scoot. A man to prospect Sean Living. So how are you gonna give Asar, Jason Richardson, and Terrence Ross, but you give a men prospect Sean Livingston, and Sean Livingston was a fine player for sure, but like, and before all that, where he had like three major injuries at once, but like, how are you gonna give him Jason Richardson, Terrence Ross when I'm pretty sure a men is probably the more athletic one and was even in OTE. Asar, I think, was the better like straight up scorer and shooter, but that's crazy. Anthony back bouncy Josh Giddey. That would be something. Um, Antoine Jameson for Taylor Hendricks. It's also like Cam Whitmore fell to 20 in real life. What else? What else? Jordan Hawkins, Anthony Simons. I mean, shooter for sure. Cason Wallace to Drew Holiday. Keontae George to Eric Gordon. That doesn't fit at all. Jaime Hawkins to Rick Fox. Leonard Miller, man. Give my boy Leonard Miller some minutes, Minnesota. All right, that was 2023, and we'll go to 2024 real quick. All right, 2024. Ricochet to a bigger Mike Miller and Denny Adia. Alex Sarr to Mobley. I could see why they say that. SGA light for Castle. Hey, I hope Castle turns into Shea. Donovan Klinger to Walker Kessler, Marcus Gasol, Cam Reddish for Cody Williams. Cam Reddish is another guy I really thought was gonna have some crazy a good career. Ron Holland to Jaylen Brown and RJ Barrett. Wow. Topas to a rich man's Goran Dragic. Edie to Yao and Boban. McCain. Let's see what else we got. Khalil Ware. I hope Khalil Ware turns into a Jared Allen like player with a shot too, a 3-point shot. That would be great. Kyle Filipowski to Keith Van Horn and Baylor Shireman, Christian Brown. All right. That was did these NBA players live up to their draft comparisons? Nothing beat Kevon Looney compared to Paul George. I know Kevon Looney. I know he was wasn't just a rebounding guy like he is in the NBA right now. But just seeing that, 10 years later, like that is just so crazy to me. That is so crazy. But thank you for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe, like and comment as well. Give me some suggestions for other videos, whether it's 2K related. We could just talk another article, a game, something like that. Give me something. And I will probably do it. But again, make sure you like and subscribe. And thank you for watching.